Someone hijacked live TV and was never caught. November 22nd, 1987, Chicago. Two separate stations are mid-broadcast when the signal dies. A figure appears wearing a Max Headroom mask, rocking, laughing, ranting complete nonsense. 90 seconds. Then the signal snaps back like nothing happened. Here's what makes this terrifying. Overpowering a broadcast signal takes serious equipment, serious skill, and a second location transmitting on the exact same frequency. The FBI investigated for years, interviewed dozens of people, never made a single arrest. The footage still exists. The person who did it is still out there. So, why did they stop? To understand why his disappearance shook the country, you have to understand who Jimmy Hoffa actually was. He was the president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, the largest, most powerful labor union in America. At his peak in the 1960s, he represented nearly 2 million workers. Truckers, warehouse workers, delivery drivers. If Hoffa told those members to stop moving freight, the American economy felt it. He was born in 1913 in Indiana, dropped out of school as a teenager, and clawed his way up through the labor movement with a combination of genuine organizing skill and, according to federal investigators and congressional testimony, a willingness to work with organized crime figures when it served the union's interests. Senate hearings in the late 1950s, led by Robert F. Kennedy, documented connections between Hoffa and various organized crime figures. Hoffa despised Kennedy. The feeling was reportedly mutual. In 1964, Hoffa was convicted on jury tampering and fraud charges. He went to prison in 1967. In 1971, President Nixon commuted his sentence, reportedly with the condition that he stay out of union leadership until 1980. Hoffa disputed that condition. By 1975, he was trying to reclaim his power base. That ambition, investigators believe, may have gotten him killed. Now here's where the story stops making sense, and where the real mystery begins. Hoffa told people he was meeting with two individuals at the Machus Red Fox that afternoon. Both men were later identified and questioned by the FBI. Both denied meeting with him. One of them had well-documented associations with organized crime figures in the Detroit and New Jersey areas. Neither was ever charged in connection with Hoffa's disappearance. Investigators believe the meeting in that parking lot was either a setup, or that whatever happened, it happened fast. A witness reportedly saw Hoffa get into a car in that lot. That car was later identified, and according to investigators, forensic testing found evidence that Hoffa had been in the vehicle. But the trail went cold almost immediately. No body was recovered. A massive federal investigation followed, spanning decades and involving multiple FBI field offices. Informants were questioned. Leads were pursued across multiple states. Properties were excavated. And every single time, investigators came back empty-handed. The case remains officially open to this day. But the lack of a body created something almost as significant as a crime scene. It created a legend. Here's the part that haunts this case more than anything else. In most homicide cases, even cases involving organized crime, a body eventually surfaces. Not here. And according to law enforcement officials and journalists who have spent decades on this story, the absence of remains is almost certainly intentional. Whoever was responsible, and that has never been proven in a court of law, went to extraordinary lengths to make sure Jimmy Hoffa could never be found. The FBI formally declared Hoffa legally dead in 1982, 7 years after his disappearance, based on the standard absence of evidence timeline. But declaring someone legally dead is not the same as solving a murder. His family never got answers. The American public never got answers, and the theories about what happened to his body became, in some ways, more famous than the man himself. All right, We've laid out everything that is verified, documented, and confirmed. Now we get to the part that no one can prove, but that no one has ever been able to rule out either. Because when you have no body and no crime scene, you're left with theories. And in the Hoffa case, there are three that investigators and journalists keep coming back to. Theory 1, Giants Stadium. For decades, the most famous version of this story held that Hoffa's remains were buried in the concrete foundations of Giants Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, a stadium that opened in 1976, just months after his disappearance. The theory reportedly originated from informants with ties to organized crime. It gained so much traction that when the stadium was demolished in 2010, there were serious discussions about whether to search the site. Some excavation reportedly did occur. Nothing was found. But some researchers argue the specific section that informants allegedly identified was never fully excavated. We can't prove this either way. Theory 2. Destroyed beyond recovery. Some investigators believe Hoffa's remains were disposed of in a way that left literally nothing to find. Cremated, processed industrially, or otherwise eliminated so completely that no forensic evidence could ever tie anyone to the crime. This theory would explain why 50 years of searching has turned up nothing. If true, it suggests a level of planning and resources that points toward professional, organized criminal activity, though no individual or group has ever been charged. Theory 3. He's still out there, undiscovered. A third possibility, and one that federal investigators have never formally ruled out, is that Hoffa's remains are buried somewhere that simply hasn't been searched yet. Over the years, tips have led investigators to farms, fields, and properties across Michigan and beyond. A 2012 search of a Detroit area field, prompted by a tip from an alleged witness, turned up nothing. A 2013 investigation of a driveway in a Michigan suburb found no evidence. Each time, the answer was the same: nothing. But that's not the same as proof the remains aren't somewhere waiting to be found. Now, here's the question we want you to sit with. Was the most powerful labor leader in America buried under a football stadium, hidden in plain sight in front of millions of fans for 30 years? Was he destroyed so thoroughly that there was simply never going to be anything left to find? Or is he still out there, in some patch of Michigan ground, waiting for the one tip that finally leads investigators to the right coordinates? We can't tell you. Nobody can. And that is the whole point. Here's why this case still touches real life today. The Hoffa disappearance directly reshaped federal law around organized crime and labor union oversight. Laws that still govern American workplaces and unions right now. And one last callback to where we started. Remember that parking lot in Bloomfield Township? Remember the phone call to his wife? The last thing Jimmy Hoffa ever told her was that his meeting was running late and he'd be home soon. He never came home. His car sat in that lot. The meeting that was supposed to happen that afternoon has never been fully explained. And the file, the real file, the FBI case, has never been officially closed. 50 years, no body, no conviction, no answers. Just an empty parking lot and a mystery that refuses to go away. The cold archive never closes a file. What do you think happened? Tell us in the comments, and subscribe because the next file is already open.